Happy to bring on this next guest here. We've got Joey and Big G in studio. They'll probably be jumping in. Joey has some questions for Michael already, but we wanted to get Michael Whitaker of the Hockey News back on. We had a good talk with him, but it got cut short by connection issues. So we're hoping the connection's better this time here, Michael. And we're also wondering today, we're celebrating the thing of the day in honor of Big G. Do you like peanut brittle?
Honestly, I cannot even remember the last time I even had peanut brittle. So, you know what? I'll just go ahead and give the politically correct answer and say, yeah, sure.
That's the answer I'm expecting from this question. I don't know how many peanut... I brought this up because we try to celebrate the thing of the day. There weren't a lot of good options today. And so I settled on peanut brittle, and unbeknownst to me, my producer, Big G, that's basically his favorite snack. So then we spent about 7 minutes of it in the open on peanut brittle here, but I'm wondering if we're going to get that response from everybody. But that's a good first response. We want to get your hockey takes above all. You sound great, so I think we're in good shape there. But I know Joey's got some questions for you. We'll leave those kind of towards the end as far as we want to talk some Olympics since we're heading into the break. But just wanted to get your takes. We didn't get this part of the segment when you were on the first time, and ever since really you've been on the show, they've been surging. Now we've got Gibson with 2 8-game win streaks and net. This team, it's kind of like the Pistons to a degree. We cover the Pistons every week too, and they keep talking about, well, who are they going to trade for? How are they going to get better? And the Pistons are the number 1 team in the East. The Red Wings are in a little bit more packed league, and they kind of vacillate back and forth depending on the nightly result, but they're towards the top of the division and the conference. And I'm just curious what you've seen here, because we're talking about trying to acquire stars. I talked with former Minnesota Wild player Eric Westrom, and he was very happy about the Hughes trade. A lot of Red Wings fans were unhappy about not getting Hughes, but they're also developing some stars in-house too. So with this young core and the way they're playing, it's not it's not too bad here in Detroit, and it's looking like hopefully they can trend to their first playoff appearance in a while here.
Well, kind of like you said, it's really started with the absolutely elite play of John Gibson. I mean, this is the best hockey he's played in his entire career. I know that his first several starts were not what he or the team really wanted them to be. His numbers weren't all that much to look at, unfortunately. But obviously, came from a completely different team, different part of the country, really. And maybe it takes a while to kind of adjust to your new surroundings. But since the calendar flipped to December, he has been absolute shoe-in Vezina trophy worthy of play. Basically, his confidence is sky high. He looks every bit as the kind of starting goaltender that the Red Wings were hoping that he would be when they acquired him. And I mean, right now his most recent win was another 8th in a row, which makes him the first Red Wings goalie since Chris Osgood to have multiple 8-game winning streaks in a single season. And then also, speaking of streaks, you have Lucas Raymond has already reached 40 assists. That actually makes him the first Red Wings player since Henrik Zetterberg to have at least 3 straight years of 40 assists. And everything just seems to be clicking right now. The line combination of Andrew Kopp with Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat has worked wonders for this team. And I really don't think it's too much of a coincidence that last season, right around the start of March, when Andrew Kopp went down, that's when a lot of their problems really started, kind of unfortunately, with their downturn in the month of March like they've experienced the last couple of years. Obviously, the year before that, it was Dylan Larkin was hurt for several games, and then last season they lost Andrew Kopp. And I know that even though Kopp's offensive stats maybe aren't exactly what a lot of fans would like them to be, he's carved out such an important role, especially on the penalty kill, and he kind of looks almost reborn playing with DeBrincat and Kane, and so it's great to see that line chugging along. And then you have Marco Kasper kind of really getting the giant monkey off his back. I know that he really wasn't even going through a sophomore slump. It was just something almost otherworldly going on with him. Obviously, I really don't think there were too many problems with his confidence, that it just wasn't working for him. But in the last couple of games. He's got a couple of goals now, a couple of assists, and the game in which he scored his first goal earlier this month, even though it was an empty net goal, he was all over the ice, and he looked exactly like the kind of player that he was in the second half of last season, where he would have been a Rookie of the Year candidate over a full 82-game schedule. And so obviously tremendous to see Kasper's confidence rise, and then you kind of mentioned the younger players that this team is, along with Kasper, but names like Sandine Pellikka and Emmett Finney. Finney recently broke a lengthy point streak, or a pointless streak, has a couple assists now in his last few games. And one guy who is not by any means a rookie, but was quite a long time ago, is James Van Riemsdyk. Obviously, this has been easily one of the most underrated signings, I think, by Steve Yzerman or any NHL GM during the most recent offseason. I know he also kind of got off, like Gibson, to a slower start. Obviously, he missed all of training camp and the preseason to be with his family after one of his newborn children required some extra care. But he has absolutely more than made up for lost time with that. He is quickly turning into one of the most important veteran leaders on this team, and he's chipping in with timely offense and looking like he did almost 10 years ago. And so obviously he scored another goal the other night in the overtime setback against the Wild, but he looks every bit as good as a player as he's ever been. And so thankfully, things right now really seem to be clicking with this team. Obviously, they picked up 5 of a possible 6 points on their recent 3-game road trip against good teams, too. And, obviously right now they're in a very good position of first overall in the Atlantic Division. I know it's kind of changing every once in a while, like kind of back and forth with the Lightning. The Lightning won. They went back into first place, and then Detroit took it back. And so it's very, very tightly packed in the East, especially in the Atlantic. But right now, the Red Wings have put themselves in about as advantageous a position as they've been in well over a decade now. And so, obviously, it's great to see, and let's hope that they can keep it going and eventually host Stanley Cup playoff hockey at Little Caesars Arena for the first time.
I agree, and I feel like there's a lot of indicators, positive indicators, that that's going to happen. You listed a lot of them, but there was a lot of reason to be hopeful even in the beginning of the season when Gibson wasn't doing so well. I was saying multiple times on the show, hey, it's early. He's got to get used to how the defense is going to line in front of him, new team, new environment, new city. I don't think people talk enough about actually going to a new city and a new market and then having to just adjust to everyday life. It's like if you move with your job, you're going to have to adjust to that, and that's going to affect your day-to-day performance. And when it's that split second, especially with a goalie, that's going to affect his performance. And he's now he's gone to basically being at peak form, and like you said, really surging to being one of the top goalies of the league now, where at first it was okay, who is 1A and 1B between him and Talbot? Now it's like, wait, where is Talbot? We haven't really needed him much, which is nice. He'll be rested when he has to be forced into action. You got other goalies in the system playing super well, in Kosa and Augustine. All the reports that we're hearing about these goalies are good at the minor league level if they have to pull somebody up. But that we have a tendency, even on the show, where we have a variety of voices, we have different people, the names get aggregated some because they want to talk about the same guys. Finney has been a huge talking point. I think this is the first time that anybody has mentioned Kopp on the show, and I'm glad you did, because he is a major glue guy on that line, as you mentioned. And hockey's not all about, sure, it's nice to get the assists, it's nice to get the goals, but there's a lot of stuff that happens blue line to blue line, in the corners, in the boards there, in the penalty kill, that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. And correlating his injury history with the wins and losses of the team, I don't think is unfair. Sure, they're going to lose more if they don't have a Larkin on the ice, but not having somebody like Kopp, even though he's not necessarily everybody's favorite player, I do think he's been one of the more important Red Wings, along with some of the other guys you named, over the course of the year this year.
Yeah, he certainly has been, and it's good to see him sticking with it this season and staying healthy. Let's obviously keep our fingers crossed that he's able to stay healthy. Unfortunately, obviously, that's not the case with, got the news this morning, Simon Edvinsson is not going to be available until late February, which in a normal season that would be obviously very awful news, but I guess the only silver lining is that there's only 5 games between now and then, because obviously you have the Olympic break, and right now it's looking like they're going to be sticking with Travis Hamonic on the blue line for Detroit. Obviously you still have Eric Gustafson. He's available in Grand Rapids if need be. We'll have to see whether or not Gustafson is called up or not. But I guess, like I said, the only silver lining about that is that between now and the end of February, there's only 5 games because of the Olympic break.
It is good timing with that break. That's actually a good lead-in because Joey was talking about this before the segment. He was talking about the other 2 guys on that line with Kopp, and so I think he has a question for you. We're going to have some Olympic coverage here while they're out there for the certain Red Wings. But I think he wanted to ask you about a couple of Red Wings that won't be there for the Olympics.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on DeBrincat and Kane not being selected to the U.S. team. I just What are your thoughts on that? Because I've had a lot of debate with a lot of hockey guys about Kane not being on. I personally feel he should be, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I was a little surprised that he wasn't selected. I think part of the reason why is that he hasn't been fully available this season because he's missed multiple games. But if anything, I mean, he doesn't need to be a major minutes guy. He can obviously still function very well on the power play. And obviously he's not only a 3-time Stanley Cup winner, but he's played on Olympic teams before and would certainly be one of the veteran leaders on that team had he been selected. And so I did speak with him in the dressing room not long after the final roster was announced, and he did admit it was a little bit disappointing, and the same thing with DeBrincat too. Obviously he's up to 27 goals, I believe it is, so far on the season. Certainly kind of an interesting choice that he wasn't included in, but I think there's a couple of interesting decisions by Bill Guerin, the GM of the Team USA, over some players within the Red Wings' own division. You have Montreal Canadiens forward Cole Caulfield, who's got, I think, 8 goals in his last 5 games, almost kind of sticking it to them of saying, hey, this is what I can do. Why didn't you pick me? A lot of people are kind of confused as to why Caulfield wasn't selected. Obviously, you have Jason Robertson with the Stars, who has several Michigan connections. He's having a fantastic season for Dallas. He wasn't selected either. Kind of an interesting thought process by Guerin, but obviously he's the one making the decisions there. If anything, I would guess that the main reason why DeBrincat wasn't selected is, I think the only hang-up on him is that he's not the biggest guy on the ice, which, I mean, I don't think that counts for much in the long run because we've seen players of all statures basically have success. And so obviously it's not, the fact that DeBrincat's not the tallest guy it's not stopping him from, scoring at a 40-goal pace again this season. And so he kind of admitted that there was a little bit of disappointment on his end over not being selected, but that's, Kane and DeBrincat certainly are not the only players who were kind of left wondering, some of the logic behind the decisions by Guerin, especially considering some of the other players that weren't selected either. So I thought that Kane would most likely make it, mostly for his leadership abilities and the ability to play on the power play. But that decision was made by Guerin to just go in another direction there.
I'm with you guys. I was a little bit surprised too. I have to admit though that as somebody that covers the Red Wings and growing up a Red Wings fan, I wasn't that disappointed from the standpoint of the Red Wings because I do think that this is something that gets a little bit underrated with these guys that do go play in the Olympics, whether obviously in a winter sport, it's during the season like this. You can see it, I think, more so in basketball where these guys play a full season, then they go off to whatever country it's in. They end up playing basically all summer. They might be a playoff team, so then they play through the playoffs, then they play in the summer, and then they basically have a very short break, and they come back for training camp. The numbers on that when they come back, even if they're a younger guy, you get a little burned out doing that. It's hard not to. They're not going to say it. They're not going to use that as an excuse. They're going to want to play for their country. I get all of that, and they deserve the right to if they're selected and all of those kinds of things. But especially with DeBrincat and especially Kane being on the older side, I'm not mad at their legs being a little fresher here, Joe.
Well, my other team, the Ducks, I was also kind of surprised that Kreider wasn't put on Team USA. Kind of for the same reasons as, leadership and veteran status, and he's still scoring goals at a good pace too. So the guys on the Red Wings and Kreider on the Ducks were kind of the ones I was disappointed that didn't make it.
And it is a good sign, Michael, that there are guys like that being left off, hopefully, for the chances of a U.S. team, because that must mean, hopefully, that these guys that they've decided to put on the roster can make a good run there. Because, if you're leaving that off the table here, then hopefully that means that they can make a run.
It really, I guess that's why they say they play the games on the ice instead of on paper. And so I think that, if the Four Nations face-off last year was any indication, I think fans are certainly going to be wanting to tune into these games. Let's certainly hope that the folks taking care of the arena over in Milan have everything ready to go by the time that the Olympics are ready to start. I know that there was several delays with either the outright construction of the venue or even the ice quality, and so let's certainly hope that that's all taken care of, because fans are certainly deserving to watch what should be a great tournament of the best talent in the world. And to be honest, I really wouldn't be surprised if kind of once again, obviously there's going to be more countries involved than the Four Nations last year, but it really wouldn't be a surprise to once again see the U.S. and Canada battle it out for top billing there.
That was a great matchup. That's been a great matchup here in recent memory. So that wouldn't be bad. But I do like that this break seems to be well timed. There are some Red Wings in the tournament as a whole, obviously, but between Edvinsson being able to heal up, like you said, and not miss a lot of games, not having Kane and DeBrincat, some of their older guys in there, I'm not too mad about that. But you made some good observations in that first point, talking about Kopp, talking about a lot of the young guys. They have a good mix of young and old here on this team, because you've got the young guys that have given a lot of good juice, but like you said, I don't think anybody saw JVR being this good as kind of a resurgent older player reuniting with one of his classmates in Patrick Kane.
It does kind of come full circle, because obviously Kane was taken first overall in 2007 by Chicago, and then Van Riemsdyk second overall by Philadelphia, and then just a couple of years later they meet each other in the Stanley Cup final with Chicago and Philly, and obviously that's the final where Kane scores the Stanley Cup winning goal on his now not his coach, but goaltender Michael Layton, who's actually the Red Wings goaltending coach now. And so kind of a lot of ways it's come full circle. But it's great to see. Van Riemsdyk just seems to have a genuine love for the game, and the way that he conducts himself and speaks after games and practices, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go into coaching eventually one day. He's very, very articulate with not only his own reviews of his own performance, but obviously the rest of the team, and it's paying off in ways that I think that even like the more optimistic Red Wings fans had when he signed him, those expectations are being completely blown out of the water with what he's been able to bring to this team. And he's really brought an element of a key presence in front of the net, which the Red Wings really haven't had since the days of guys like Thomas Holmstrom, who would literally make their living right in front of the net. That's where Van Riemsdyk really thrives. That's where he spends most of his time on the ice, is at the periphery of the crease there, taking away the goaltender's view, and not so much in the same style of Holmstrom, because he was very, very unique in that aspect. But we've seen so many times this year, so many great assists at or even below the goal line, right next to the net. And obviously he's, when his goal against the Wild the other night was off a pass from Emmett Finney, right in front of the goal mouth there. And he's just been almost a revelation for the Red Wings, and he's kind of turning back the clock to points earlier in his career when he was considered one of the better forwards in the league. And now obviously the Red Wings aren't going to depend on him like he's 25 years old again, but it's great to see that he still has several of those elements that made him worthy of being taken second overall. And obviously the Red Wings are reaping the benefits from it.
He's been one of the more important parts of the team, and like you said, they don't have to depend on him in the same way that they used to. I want to talk about one more name from that grouping of names that you talked about, because with Edvinsson being out, and thankfully it's not going to be too many games, but it's also kind of a weird bit of timing with the trade deadline, because even though it's more than a month, it's like a month and a half away, there's not that many games between now and the trade deadline because of the position of the Olympics. And I'm curious if seeing guys like Hamonic in there more is going to encourage them to make a trade based on, let's get a little bit more depth in here if we can while we get Edvinsson back and some of the other reinforcements back. Do you see anything happening here in between now and March 6th?
I think that obviously the Red Wings could always stand for additional help on the blue line. I'm not sure if this injury to Edvinsson is going to force their hand, so to speak. Obviously, we know that Steve Yzerman likes to keep everything very, very close to the vest. And so right now there haven't been too many indications other than from, pretty well-connected NHL insiders like, Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun have been speculating about potential additions by the Red Wings. But obviously that is all going to rest on what Steve Yzerman decides is best for the team. It really wouldn't surprise me if the Red Wings were to go out and acquire defensive help. I know that obviously Rasmus Andersson was a name that had been kind of floated out there, and obviously now he's with Vegas. And so, but there are other names that have been floated out there by various other insiders. And so it would really probably come down to what not only the cost of what it would be, but what that player's current contract looks like, because so far in his tenure with Detroit, at least not yet, Yzerman hasn't really shown a willingness to take on rentals. Maybe with Detroit's advantageous position in the standings right now, that could potentially change. But like I said, it's ultimately going to come down to what he decides is best for the team right now. And I think that given where they are in the standings, it would not be surprising to see them for the first time in a long time be buyers at the deadline rather than what we've traditionally seen the last several seasons as selling off pieces.
Especially with the way the deadline went last year, and then they didn't really do anything, and Larkin and some others spoke out. I wouldn't be surprised, but they're surging without that, which is nice. So like you said, they're in an advantageous position. But we appreciate you joining the show. You sounded great. So whatever was going on last time, it was not happening this time. So we'll definitely have you back on the show, but make sure to tell people where they can follow your work here.
Absolutely. Well, for those who are just simply need to point of reference, you would just simply go to the Hockey News and click down on the link on the top left of the page, cover the Red Wings. You can certainly follow my work there. You can always register for a free account at the Hockey News and hit the yellow follow button on my account. It's 100% free, and that way you can kind of easily stay connected with all that. And then Twitter handle is at MWHITAKER_89. Been really starting to get very active on Twitter after a long time of not being active on it. But usually tweet out game updates and even game goals, highlights, and all that kind of stuff. And so usually the best way to keep in touch with everything that I'm doing is either on Twitter or on the Hockey News website. So
be sure to give him a follow. Great stuff. Appreciate you joining the show, and we'll look forward to talking to you again here likely after the trade deadline.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Appreciate the talk, and talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michael. Take care.